Hello everyone, and welcome back to another tier list Thursday, this time once more with a division tier list, as we haven't had one in a while, and we got 4 new ones. We got some balance changes since then that were pretty big as well, so we're gonna go over all the divisions and figure out where they stand. Before we go in though, quick shout out to WARNO League Season 2, which is coming up on the 16th of September. 14th of September is the last day to sign up, so if you want to join the tournament, that is giving you fair matchups, being split by skill level, as we're gonna have 4 divisions again, split by skill level, and you want to just have some WARNO fun time, sign up for the league, and see you all there. And yeah, let's jump in here into the tier list, starting with the East Germans, and starting with Berliner Gruppierung, a division that we have talked a lot about being really far down here in the past. I believe it got a good bit better, but it's still just a C tier division. It has improved a good bit in with the T55 buffs and so on. Its infantry got some decent changes as well. KDA though got nerfed 5 points, the infantry unit, so that pulled it out of B tier. I believe with KDA still being 40 points, the division could actually be quite viable. Without them, they still struggle, and I wish they would get a couple more toys. Hopefully, in the future, they get a couple of more interesting things around so that they can potentially go up here again. Yeah, the faster T55s, though, helping out the division a solid bit. KDA being the next one here. Solid little division as well. I would currently put them in B tier. They have some strong action with the air still going on. They still have a really strong plop. T62s working out quite well as well. They just still have some issues later on, but I feel like they're a solid B tier at the moment. Not really having any issues with Burcom, and that is pretty nice. So yeah, Burcom quite playable, quite strong, and for sure division that you can play if you like on spam. The issue with dealing with heavy tanks though is real, and heavy tanks still are a big part of the meta, and not having any IVs of their own is a problem as well, but their artillery and their bomber tab can help out with that. Then 4th, Motschützen, which I feel like is still an A tier division. The T55 speed buff helped them out a good bit now as well. And they are just in general a division that gets a lot of play. We see it in the league quite a bit. The forward deploy with Fallschirmjägers is strong, with them being special forces and all. Sure, the Maddies nerfed those guys a slight bit, but they are still pretty strong. And you have the other Fallschirmjägers as well. The BMP1 buff got the division a decent boost as well, and it was, as I said, already the second highest played Pact division. Pact being a bit weaker than NATO before the last patch, still being a bit weaker now, I would say, but the difference is quite small by now. The BMP1 buff and co really helped out, and the nerfs to the most OP NATO stuff. So yeah, A tier here for the 4th. And then we come to 7th, which I put on the end of B tier last time. I believe it was more C tier actually. Now it is back in B tier. Thanks to the BMP1. It still has a tough time sometimes in early game. It still has a tough time in late game, but it has that T72 blob that can really hit hard. And the BMP1 buff helped it out quite a bit as well, so that you can afford those BMP1s with ATGMs a bit more easily, though you had the other BMP options in that division as well. So it's not as impactful there. Yeah, it's still a solid division though, now that, yeah, with some T55s in it as well, but mostly the T72s being okay, being quite decent tanks, but not amazing. And yeah, it's just a division that still has a good strike force in the air and so on. Berliner Gruppierung, next division. I really like playing it, but it still has some weaknesses that can be exploited. It's way better in, like, it's around here in team games thanks to the Krug. But the Krug alone doesn't quite carry you through 1v1s. I believe it's a good bit better than Berliner, though still being C tier. But yeah, it is still struggling to really get it done. Like, I played it quite a bit now. I have an okay win rate with it, but the division still feels like it lacks something. Like, uh, you have to rely on your gimmicks, your Mi 14s, your Krooks, and so on to work. The rest of the division, not as impactful. The Polish units outside of the Merida, which is decent, are quite underwhelming. So yeah, C tier here it is for this division, and I think that's okay. I hope we get some slight buffs to it in the future, then it can go up here quite easily. And as I said, in team games, the Krook, I believe the Krook needs some nerfs. Some other of the AA assets, which, like for example, the 1mm gun, I feel like they could still use something there buff-wise that would make it a bit better and a bit more useful, and then this division could jump up here in the future. Fifth Day, the French tank division. I believe it is around B and A tier. I would put it in A tier here now, with the dragon having been quite annoying in the past, and that being nerfed in the medis, you can deal quite well now with enemy infantry. Once more with the autocannon, which you always were already pretty good at, so that is quite nice. And itself didn't get any nerfs, whilst a lot of the other divisions around it got nerfs. And it works quite well. Like, it has that big bunch of autocannons. The escort, yeah, I guess, got nerfed a bit, but outside of that, the division is fine, and those got actually more availability. The AMX 10P with IFV getting buffed in the in-between patch was pretty nice move as well. So this division does fine. Chasseurs now being an interesting 4-weapon slot unit with that sniper rifle as well. And yeah, the autocannon on the AMX 30s is just so scary with the push. Though there are a lot of IFVs with TOW 2s and Milans around, and that is the scary part for this division. Milan 2s and TOW 2s one-shot killing their AMX 30s. That is the scary bit. You have to be careful around that. Everything else you can deal quite efficiently with. You still have a pretty decent strike aircraft tab that can deal with enemy heavy tanks and so on, and everything else you can roll over. Just those ATGMs you have to be careful around. But if you use your smoke wisely and so on, the division is absolutely ballers still. 11th power, I feel like has fallen off of grace a good bit. We haven't seen it super much lately. I would even put it into, I dare put it into C tier here, as this division just doesn't feel that impactful when it comes to the meta at the moment again. And yep, it still has forward deploy, sure, but that with the current map pool and the current meta, like, doesn't feel that strong. And it is still annoying. Its air tap not that strong though, and yeah, it since the Legionaries got nerfed again, we have seen really little of this division again. And whenever we saw it, it got beaten. So I don't know. Like, this division is always so quick from here to here, like even up here. And I might be wrong here. It might still be a B tier. I would actually put it cautiously here into C tier right now, because it just got beaten every time we saw it in League, and I felt like never having a real issue playing against it. You just dismantle it slowly at the moment, and that works out quite well. IVs being more meta again and being around more on the because there's less dragons in ranked makes this division weaker as well, as IVs can bully you quite heavily there. So yeah, 11th actually dropping down to C tier here in my book, and yeah, it's a really close way though for this division. Like, this division is so explosive. It's such a high damage output division, so it's such a class cannon. If it goes, like, if it can get that on board assembled, it can go up to A tier real quickly again. And I might be wrong here as well. As I said, this is a division I'm quite unsure about. Second Panzer Grenadier, that division is still A tier, and yeah, it has modders which now are more being used. The Leo combo still fantastic. The AA pretty good. Its air got nerfed a decent amount. Yeah, the F-16s and so on getting nerfed a good bit, and so on. So it's still an A-tier division with a lot of good, strong ground units, but it isn't quite where it had been in the past. Sicherungs being nerfed and so on as well, which made it S tier with that super insane cost efficiency. It is still really cost efficient, and it has a good armor tab. And a 5th Panzer, actually, that is still S tier, especially now with the Dragon and Maddie's nerf. The Marder, Leo 2 combo, Leo 2A3 and 2A4 currently really, really, really efficient tanks. And yeah, that makes it an S tier division, even after the nerf of the F4F, and the general slight nerf to the air tab, which was super busted last patch. It was S plus tier basically. Now it is S minus tier, which is fine. Like, you can beat this division again, but it is really hard. You have all the Leos, you have Martyrs now coming around in decent numbers. The 1A3 in 2nd Panzer Grenadier being a good bit better thanks to the extra frontal armor, but the normal Martyr now is usable. Before, it was really tough with all the Medis and Dragons around to actually effectively use them. Now that they outrange them, you can use Panzer Grenadiers and Martyrs a lot more, and that helped these two divisions quite a bit. Still hoping for 6-man for Panzer Grenadiers eventually, guys, but even without that, they are pretty solid now, which they weren't really the factor beforehand, but yeah, they really are now, and that keeps them here in A tier and S tier, 2nd Panzer and 5th Panzer, like kind of as a combo, and 5th still so fantastic thanks to those Leos and that super deadly big ball of everything of doom that they can create that just can roll over everything. Then Ter Kommando Süd, that is currently a B tier division. It has been nerfed in its air tab quite a bit. Its forward deployment still is strong. Its air tab still is strong as well, but it has fallen off a good bit. I ranked it as A tier last time. I think it's only B tier now, thanks to the air nerfs, which were absolutely fine. I hope we will see maybe some slight changes to its infantry and AT options outside of that, maybe in the future. But it is a fine division. Its air tab is still really good, and it deserved those nerfs. The F-104s were kind of comical in some matchups, and the enemy just didn't stand a chance. That has been fixed, which is nice. And yeah, it left the division in a decent spot here in B tier. Yeah, I would even put it in front of 7th KDA and TKS once more, playing quite similar, with TKS being a bit more explosive, but KDA having a bit more of a long breath thanks to T62s versus M48s and so on. But TKS, yeah, a solid division still. I really love the division still, but it has gotten down a bit. And then we come to WARNO 19th, which was C tier here last time. And I think it's B tier now. The BMP1 buff helped it out. A couple of other small buffs helped it out as well. T55 being a bit faster with its TO55s and so on. And the map pool currently is pretty okay for it as well. So yeah, with its Spetsnaz, with its explosive start, the cheaper Su-27s also helped it out, really dominating the air fights. Su-27 currently a fantastic plane as an air dominance, and the T-80Us and UDs, really strong. We saw it dominate a game on Vertigo in the League Grand Finals, which sure was after bans, but it was against 3rd US back then. So 190 really has come around. It's still not a Swiss Army knife. You shouldn't bring it everywhere. It's more of a tournament division still, where you bring it in the right matchup on the right map. But it can do that now. And that was, like, they've always felt to be a better option before. So yeah, it being in B tier here now is pretty fine. And yeah, it's nice to see it being a better division now, even with the T80Us and UDs still being pretty pricey, but they do quite solid work there. And that brings us to 27th Guards, being a division that was dominating S tier here for a while. I would put it on really high A tier now. It is still pretty strong. Its Medis units getting nerfed though, which were pretty important for the early game and so on. So yeah, and it didn't get really any of the buffs that some of the other pack divisions got. So yeah, it is still a strong division. It is relatively cost inefficient in some aspects until you get that combined arms online, and then it is really efficient. But currently it's BV, BMP3 combo and so on. Feels beatable, and that is nice. It is still really strong though. Like, don't underestimate it. It just went from S to A tier and is still high A tier. It is still a really, really strong all-rounder, and that is nice to see. But yeah, it didn't really profit from the BMP1 buffs and stuff like that, whilst some of the nerfs did hit it a bit. But yeah, 27th on A tier is still totally fine. That brings us to 35th, a division that relied on medis quite a bit as well. It has gotten the stealth buff on the Cocon and stuff, on the BRDM Cocon, medis. No, on the BRDM with the Cocon and that stuff. So has gotten some changes in the form of buffs kind of as well. It still has forward deployment. I would rank it still pretty lowly right now. Like, it can get overrun, and the medis nerfs for sure hit it quite hard, as it was reliant on that more than any of the other pack divisions, and that change hasn't really been compensated for. SU-25 being nerfed as well and so on. Like, all of those did hit it, and it didn't really receive any buffs for it. So yeah, I would put it here in the end of B tier. It still has strong helicopters. It still has the BMD2, which can be quite good and has a still pretty potent rush there with those kind of things. But it's kind of the opposite from Warrant 19. On like, the maps from Warrant 19 isn't good. 35th is pretty good, but it also has a lot of weak maps now, and that's why I would put it here in the end of B tier, where it is still fine to use, but it has some big weaknesses for sure now. I had some annoying games against it where it was just pure conquer spam, but yeah, that is still not a match-winning plan in the long run in my eyes. So yeah, B tier here it is. 39th on the other hand, that profited a lot from the BMP1 buff, and just in general feels like a pretty solid A tier division again. Like, we have seen it quite a bit lately on the ladder again. We have seen it in tournament play a bit as well. And that division just, yeah, it is the bread and butter one. And the BMP1 being viable again helps it with the BMP1, BMP2 combo now. Being cost efficient, being nice there. And yeah, it still goes around. ARMS 70s and stuff, like all of that helps out Pact and currently as well. Those multiple rocket launchers around all pack divisions, and the Grats, like those are really helpful. All pack divisions that can grab some. So yeah, that helps them here. Getting into A tier as well. Their AA is solid. That stuff works out quite nice as well. So A tier here, 439th. Having some SU-27s as well, and yeah, 39th. Just solid division here. A tier, back in action. It's nice to have them there. I feel like just like 8th, 39th being low A tier, high B tier is where they always should be as the beginner divisions. That's the perfect spot to be. You don't want to have them really lower, and you don't want to have them broken as they had been in the past. So yeah, it's nice to have them here as the stepping into the game divisions that they are. 56. Not really having the forward deployment, but having a lot better follow-up than 35th with BMD2s and co. The extra urgency on the Gruts and baby Gruts. All of that really helpful, and makes it a B tier. The air is on the AA is really weak, and that's the issue of this division currently. It gets air bullied quite easily, and so that's the reason why it's still B tier. Otherwise, it could actually be even higher, but you have to be careful of how you move your AA and air assets, because they're really limited, and if the enemy catches you off guard, they can dominate you from the skies, and that can be frustrating. So 56 has to be careful, but if you are, then that division with decent amount of ground rockets, and especially a lot of BMP2s and solid infantry can be quite scary. Like, really scary. 56. Yeah, B tier here. And then 6 Moto. A division that feels really, really solid here as well. I actually would go as far as sending them into low A tier now as well. Like, they have really good AA. They have really solid tanks with the T-64s. They have fantastic artillery with the Hyacinths, which just, with the autoloader artillery, just dominate matches. Another reason why with the day at the moment feels quite nice as well. Those autoloader artillery pieces really strong. And then it has good support assets around it as well. Like the air tab is decent, the recon tab is pretty decent. Its infantry being a bit lower in numbers and so on, all of that is something that you have to get around. But they have some BMP ones as well, which just got buffed and so on. So yeah, the 6, I really think it can go far. We have seen some fantastic games in League Season 1 with it as well. And yeah, especially the Hyacinth there playing a massive role together with that strong Tunguska Buk AA tab combo that just can dominate the airspace, especially on narrower maps as well. And that leaves it here as a low A tier division. 79th. Being a B tier division, BMP1 buff, help it out. It still has a bit of issues with logistics tab. Its air tab is rather vulnerable. AA is okay though, thanks to Coops. And it has the BMP1 buff. The T-ADBVs it gets are pretty solid as well. So they're not the highest end tanks currently at the moment. T-ADBVs got nerfed decently, so that's why these guys are not S tier anymore. The T-ADBV dominance, the dominant days have been over, but they're still able to deal with most tanks. Just M1s and Leos are better at the moment, which hurts them a bit, like Leo, but it's still fine. And as a heavy tank division, the IZD is still fun, being fast and being a solid tank there. It's just that the division is a bit heavy, a bit clunky in some extent. The BMP1 nerf buff helped out, helping out with that, moving it up a bit from lower in B tier, but it's still not the best division out there at the moment. I feel like it could get a couple of slight changes that make it maybe a bit more its own thing again. Like, I would like to, for example, to see the penetration on the IZD go up using the ammo of the Us and UDs, and then being a bit more unique than the normal T-ADBV. But yeah, that's just something that we will see if we will get something like that in the future. 79 for sure. A cool division. Still to play. I like it, but I play it relatively passively, and that can be punished quite hard. And you have to get that combined arms up. That's for sure, and it's not as easy as of some other divisions. Then we come over to the British. First UK being the first one here. And yeah, got some buffs here. And it has the decent warrior currently with the warrior plague and the chieftain Mark III. And oh no, the Challenger Mark III getting slightly buffed as well. Helped out the division a decent amount too. Its air tab got nerfed though, so it's not a massive air spam division anymore like that. And that was what kept it higher in the past. Like the air spam was super frustrating. It's a better tank division now though, and it does that job pretty well now, and that is nice. It's just okay though, and the chieftains, challengers, and co are only okay as well. Not having any super good long range ATGMs, like having to rely on Milan 2s with their range can be a frustrating part on some maps as well. And the other ATGMs that you get are not that amazing. So yeah, the infantry is okay. The fort deployed doesn't help you super much most of the time though. It's more of a trap. Like, we have seen the division work in League, but every time somebody tried to play too aggressively with fort deployed, they lost. Those those para units are actually really kind of a trap, and that leaves it as a B tier division here, being just a normal slower tank division that has some decent firepower, but nothing special. Second UK has fallen off a solid bit as well. I can't even quite put my finger on it, but yeah, the SAS times where that playstyle dominated are somewhat over, even though it didn't really change super much, but yeah, it has fallen into A tier here in my eyes. The challengers and co are obviously not that great, but Warrior, the infantry tab, fantastic still. British infantry still does it. The rifles, good stuff with the low 80 and co. AA tab for sure is an issue, and I guess that's part of the issue for both of these divisions, that we had a lot of air spam lately, though that got nerfed, so it's not as big of a problem anymore. But yeah, the division still struggled a bit, though the Phantom here was okay. But second UK, strong infantry, still an A tier division here, still does really well. It's just away from its days where it was just really dominant. Its helo-borne infantry is still pretty solid, got a price buff actually to that helicopter and so on. So there is still some play to be played for sure with second UK. It just is a really strong division now, but none of the absolute top tier anymore. Then Berlin Command, which is another C tier division here. It gets sky bullied too easily, even with the changes to its AA tab that it now has the Rapier FSA. That's a nice unit to add. I think that was a good change, and it was the most logical unit to be added there. But it is still rather easily to bully division from the sky. It doesn't have any good autocannon. I don't know why they didn't buff its little Rarden carrier vehicle. And yeah, its infantry got changed a bit around. The Berlin light rifles, I think, are a bit better now, but lower range as well, so they're not quite as good at anti-vehicle, and you struggle a bit with that. It still has a good infantry tab. Like, the infantry tab is still fantastic. That's nice. The tank tab can help out for sure. It's not the best, but it can work. But yeah, the air tab buffs that it got didn't quite feel enough. Mirages still don't feel great. They should just need a reload time change or buff 2 damage to really work. And the rest, yeah, the Nighthawk is a gimmick. It's a cool gimmick, but it's a gimmick. And that keeps it here in C tier as a division that is okay, but nothing super fancy. 100 first tier, a division that I played a lot. I struggled with it, though it was really strong last patch. That was before the Dragon nerf, though. And I feel like the Dragon nerf hit these guys particularly hard because they don't have the fort deployment. And yeah, they kind of needed those units. So I would put them here. I think they were upfront B tier last patch. Now they're rear end B tier here now, as they have been hit pretty hard by that. They still have a strong helicopter tab. They still have some decent tanks with the IPs, and the infantry tab in general is not bad. Like, they have the Green Berets, ODA, and all of that fancy stuff. The 84 units, all good. But you needed some Dragon 2s here to really do the stuff, and they have been nerfed a good bit. They still can do some jobs, but dealing with IOVs in this division is annoying now, and you don't get the easy jump in that other airborne units divisions get, like 35th, 82nd, 11th E, that you just can't grab ground because you don't have that forward deployment. So that makes the division struggle a bit in that regard. Air tab is good, and so on. So you still have some assets there to be used. It just doesn't quite feel like it works out, especially compared to other American divisions that are still really, really strong. And we go into that now with 11th ACAF, which most likely was the most busted division for a good while, with engineered dragons, a lot of them, and dragons in general being strong, and 1A1 still strong. Then the air tab being really, really stupid as well. So that got nerfed, and I feel like it left the division in A tier. High A tier. It's still a scary division, but only A tier. So yeah, that division is the Americans still doing a good job here. But they have been nerfed a bit in efficiency, which is nice. And yeah, the air tab nerf. Sure, the Mavericks hit a bit harder now, but the price changes, the gun changes to the A10, and so on, all helped out, making it a bit easier to handle. And the Dragon Infantry not being able to hold off and all IFVs in the world for the whole game makes it so that you can push the division when it invests into something like the air a good bit easier as well, and that's a nice change. M1A1's still hard to beat, but you can beat them. So yeah, 8 tier here for the 11th ACAF. Still a top tier division, but not a busted division anymore. Then we come to 24th, which was 8 tier as well because of the dragons and a lot of IFVs, which it still has. Those IFVs are pretty good, but they got nerfed a bit as well. So the National Guard Bradley's going up in price a bit. So yeah, that gets a bit of a preemptive nerf to stop it from rolling out of hand as a IV spam division, which would have been really strong. It is still pretty solid. Strike Eagle and so on being pretty good as well, but the Dragon nerf hit this division quite decently as well, which was the goal of all of this, right? Dragon's still doing a decent job, but they are not the enemy IVs don't matter free card that they were before. So yeah, B tier here for I would put it up over here around TKS from a power level. Like, you don't have the most efficient units on their own. You have a really solid combined arms, and you have the Strike Eagle. Like, you have some fancy outliers, but outside of that, you don't have the most efficient units on their own. The M1IP is solid, but the National Guard one is pretty mediocre, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's B tier division. It has Bradleys, it has all of the stuff it needs, yeah, but it doesn't really shine. Forward deployment is not really there, so it can get bullied there. And yeah, B tier division here for this. And then we come to 35th, the division that I still struggle to really put into the right place. And I think a safety measure would be putting it high in B tier. I kind of want to put it A tier. Let's put it high B tier, as it has a lot of killing power coming for you. This division has a lot of M67s. It can just spam them. If it uses smoke well, that plop is so scary. The M60s that it gets cost efficiently give you so much fire support as well. It lacks AT, so against heavy tanks it has a bit of an issue, but it has some decent AT planes. It has a decent artillery and AA tab as well. Obviously no forward deployment, but you can deal with that quite easily with all the fire support against divisions that have forward deployment. And it then comes with so much firepower, thanks to all those M67s, thanks to all the 50 cults flying around in that division as well, on the M60s, on the M113s. That puts it into B tier. Yeah, just still struggle against heavier tanks. That can be quite real sometimes. And the lack of forward deploy, plus the big game that you have to play around with the military police, which is doable, but it can be frustrating sometimes, and it obviously adds micro and complexity to the division so that your National Guards don't run. Yeah, that military police play is pretty important as well. Then we come to the third US, and that division is an S tier division. It's got some nerfs, sure, but the nerf of the Dragon and the Medis helped out this division, being the Bradley big boy again. The M1A1s and M1A1HA still really strong. Apaches and co work pretty well as well. And it's just such a late game powerhouse. The Eagles and so on. Like, currently this division just rocks. And I feel like a nerf to the M1A1HA is at hand. It's far from as busted. Like, this S tier is not as busted as previous S tiers have been. But these two divisions still feel like the current dominators in the meta. I'm liking that we have IFVs in a fire support role that makes sense again. They don't delete infantry like they had in some past patches. They just are good fire support now, like really good fire support now. That's where you want them to be. We just will have to figure out all the prices around that in the future. And yeah, currently the third just feels really powerful of that. Then 82nd, which I would feel there's another B tier division here. I would put it here. Yeah, also really reliant on the dragon. Not having any ITOs hurts this division quite badly. Only having TOW 2s, it's pretty pricey if you want to deal with some medium tank divisions. Like medium tank divisions can bully 82nd really quite well. It can deal with heavy tanks and it can deal with some infantry divisions as well quite decently, as its units at least got cheaper as well. But medium tanks and lots of IFVs are a trouble for this division right now, leaving it in B tier and leaving it in a decent spot, but you will have to be quite careful how you use them. LAVs obviously being nerfed and so on as well. The A10 nerf hit it as well. That's air opener that kept it in A tier in the past. Yeah, that's got hit quite hard. So yeah, B tier it is, but still a solid division with the infantry and all that it got. So I'm not too worried about 82nd being hit too hard, as the price adjustments being made to the dragon infantry were nice. If you want to buff it, give it ITOs, a card of ITO, or at least ITO vehicles maybe, so that it can have something cheaper against lighter vehicles. But that's the only change that I feel like could be deserved for this division right now. Helicopters and so on working quite nicely for it as well. And then we have 8th, which I would put around here now. Like, it was pretty reliant on the dragon as well. It doesn't have that many IFVs. It only has some recon Bradleys, so it didn't really profit from IFVs becoming more relevant again. It still has M1s, M1A1s, M60s, so yeah, it still has a good armor tab as well. The mech rifles still are really strong infantry units, especially the lore stuff still working out quite well. So I don't worry about 8th. The helicopter tab, the air tab, all pretty solid as well. It just isn't quite as OP as it has been in the past, but that's good. Like 8th and 39th, I feel like are in the spot where they are supposed to be, and I'm really happy with that. So yeah, 8th here coming in as A tier division as well. Being hit by the IFV game a bit that the other divisions here ahead of it have, but outside of that, it's still a really strong division. And yep, that leaves it here. We live in a armored IFV meta at the moment. Late game, you survive early game on most maps currently quite decently, so late game does matter more than early game currently, which is good as well. The rush metas that we had in some patches in the past are over, but a good stronghold from the early game with 4th, with 82nd and so on still can win games, so don't you worry. I feel like the meta really currently is in a pretty decent spot. Only the mid game could use some improvements here. I feel like it doesn't quite feel as on the edge as it had been sometimes in the past. Not quite sure how to change that. In my eyes, recon buff is the way to go there, because then you don't need to plop to actually do some interactions. But outside of that, the game feels really well. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you next time. Bye bye, and have a great day.